Dr. Alexander Vindman is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel. He previously served as Director for European Affairs on the National Security Council. Before that, he served as the Political Military Affairs Officer for Russia for the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and an attaché at the U.S. embassies in Moscow and Kiev. While on the Joint Staff, he authored the National Military Strategy for Russia. He earned a master's from Harvard University and a master's and doctorate from Johns Hopkins, where he was a senior fellow. Dr. Vindman leads the national security think tank, Institute for Informed American Leadership, and the nonprofit Here Right Matters Foundation, and was a former executive board member for the Renew Democracy Initiative, a senior fellow at the Kettering Foundation, and a senior advisor to Vote Vets. Please give a warm welcome to candidate for U.S. Senate, Alex Vindman.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, it's a good place to start. Really appreciate the warm welcome. There was a lot of, frankly, there was a lot of stuff in that biography. The most important thing is I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a 21-year Army veteran. Those are the things I really, frankly, those are the most important things in my life. How many veterans do we have in this room? Do we have any veterans in this room? I see a couple. Thank you for your service. Really appreciate it. I know Jacksonville is right here. There's a large Navy presence, so I appreciate this community also welcoming veterans. Look, we have a real choice in this election between myself, a 21-year combat veteran, and my opponent, a 20-year politician who's self-enriched, who's delivered for power. So in this election, it really matters who we choose because it'll determine who is in power in the Senate. So this is what this election's about. A little bit more about myself. I'm a Jewish refugee from the Soviet Union. My family came here in 1979 when I was just 4 years old. It was Dad that brought us over, my older brother, my twin brother, my grandmother, my dad's mother-in-law, who he didn't get along with. My mom had just passed away, and she was one of our caregivers. So when we got to the U.S., we had $750 in our pockets. Dad hauled furniture at the age of 47 for 6 months before he got enough language under his belt to land a union job. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment, Dad sharing the bedroom with us three little boys. We thought it was pretty swell. I'm not sure how he felt about it. With that union job, he had a safe working environment. He worked in the tunnel systems in New York. If anything happened to him, the family would be lost. He had health care for us boys. We had lots of visits to the emergency rooms, lots of broken bones. He had a guaranteed paycheck that made sure that when he was working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, he was getting a paycheck that was able to provide for the family. He remarried in those first couple of years, which was great. We got the mom that raised us and a bonus brother out of that deal, so it was 4 boys. And all 4 of us served in the military at one point or another. 3 of us in the Army, and we had a Black Sheep Marine. Any Marines in here? Yeah, we had one of those. My twin brother and I made a career out of military service. I started out as an infantry officer, airborne ranger, deployed to Iraq in 2004, about 10 months into meeting my wife, Rachel, and she ended up getting that awful call that loved ones dread when they have folks in harm's way. I was wounded by a roadside bomb, an Iranian bomb that was designed to puncture through U.S. armored vehicles, and I took shrapnel to my shoulder and to my leg, which I carry with me to this day. But I was the lucky one. The Marines that were sitting next to me were severely wounded. They were evac'd out of theater. And I learned a lot over the course of my career, but particularly that day, that war is more than just about dollars and cents. It's about the true treasure, our troops that we put into harm's way. So it really, I know we're in this church, but it really peeves me off that my opponent, Ashley Moody, has signed on to this dangerous war of choice, voted to give this administration a free pass on 9 separate occasions. And I'm a heck no on these wars of choice that put our troops in harm's way, squander our resources, and that's one of the contrasts, that I'm not going to be a rubber stamp. I'm not beholden to any special interests. My military career took me all around the world. I served in Korea and Germany. I was a diplomat serving in Kiev, Ukraine, Moscow, Russia. Went back to the Pentagon, where I literally wrote the book on Russia, the National Military Strategy, and ultimately landed in the White House on the National Security Council. Having served presidents of both parties and sworn an oath repeatedly to the Constitution to defend against enemies, foreign and domestic, I was witness to a corrupt abuse of power. I reported that abuse of power, as was my duty. That triggered an impeachment of a president, and that also ended my military career. So after 21 years, we looked for, we didn't look backwards. We didn't hem and haw about what could have been. I think that's the ingrained in our Vindman DNA. We decided that there were other things to do. So you heard about some of the degrees. I wrote a couple of books. But mainly we were looking to start a second chapter and frankly plant some roots somewhere. And we chose Florida. Florida was the first place we got a chance to choose where to live after 21 plus years of military service. And we chose to live here for a number of different reasons. One of them was that my very best friend for my first assignment married a local in South Florida. We'd been coming here for a couple of decades, and this place felt closest like home. This is the place where we wanted to raise our daughter. And this was a place that had the promise of affordability and a prosperous future. So my wife was itching to get away from politics, and we moved down to Florida. I mean, life has a funny way of laughing at you. That was our plan, but given the urgency of this moment, I couldn't sit on the sidelines. The fact is that we're not headed towards that more prosperous future for our young folks, that working families are struggling, and that folks here on retirement, on fixed income, are barely getting by. Too many are leaving. And we know why that's the case, because career corrupt politicians are happy to deliver for power. So let me tell you about my opponent, Ashley Moody. As an attorney general, she's received $1 million from the big insurance companies and never held them to account when they failed to pay their claims. She didn't challenge their rate hikes like her predecessors did. When she landed in the Senate, oh, by the way, she landed in the Senate after signing off on $10 million to be transferred out of a child health care fund. And that was the payoff was for a political campaign, and her payoff was a Senate seat. When she gets to the Senate, she trades more than $2 million in stocks on insider information only Congress gets. She sits on the Health Services Committee overseeing Big Pharma and trades their stock while our drug prices go up. This has got a name. It's called corruption. I'm not taking a dime from corporate PACs. I'm not beholden to any special interests. I'm driven by the same value set that I tried to serve while I was in uniform, and that drove me to report corruption at the highest level. And it really doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to have these folks in charge. We have some choices we can make. This is an opportunity for us to pick a different future. We just celebrated the 250th anniversary of this country. It's a beautiful anniversary that should be absolutely an opportunity to celebrate what we've achieved. This country has delivered a great deal for ourselves, but we've also elevated humanity. We've delivered for all of humanity. We ushered in the age of democracy. But if we're going to be patriots, we should be critical patriots and recognize where we've fallen short too. So this is an opportunity for us to sign on to make sure that we expand healthcare, to make sure that Social Security is secure for future generations, that we have high quality education, that we figure out solutions to drive down costs, So that's what I'm running on. But I can't do it alone. That's why you see me traveling across the state. We've had more than 200 events across the state of Florida. Hit every corner. We were in Pensacola just earlier this week. We were in Nassau County. Last time we were in St. John's, we had just visited Nassau County, furthest northeast we can go. And just a couple of days later, after that trip, we went in Key West. So there's no corner of the state that we haven't gone to. We've been to the villages twice. We've reached across the entire political spectrum to Democrats, which is home base, but also to independents that are not ideologically driven. They're much more focused on who's going to deliver a brighter future, who's going to revive the American dream. And we're connecting with Republicans too, because that's what we need to do in order to win in the state of Florida. We're connecting with them on the fact that they're struggling. They want a change candidate, somebody that's going to elevate politics and try to deliver for folks that we haven't seen in more than a decade with the absence of Democratic power here. So that's what we're building here. Just over the course of the past several days, in my neck of the woods, I'm not sure if it means that much up here, but I received the Miami Herald endorsement. Yesterday we announced thank you. Yesterday we announced our fundraising numbers. The most meaningful aspect of it, because these numbers could mean nothing, but the most meaningful aspect of this is that I've raised almost 2.5 times what Ashley Moody has raised, which means that we have the resources to get the message out, to connect with Democrats, to make sure they turn out, to make sure that the independents are informed. They're not paying attention. Let me be 100% clear, they're not. It's going to take every bit of resource to connect with folks and make sure that they come out and vote for Democrats in a change election. And it's going to give us the resources to persuade Republicans that there's a different direction. And there are plenty of Republicans that feel lied to and betrayed. So I appreciate you all showing up in this room. Thank you for coming out here, for listening to me. How many of you are ready to go vote for change today? How many of you are ready to go and vote and bring 2 other folks to the polls to make sure that they vote also? All right. I'm going to go ahead and like I've modeled when I went to the villages, I'm going to ask you to do the next hard thing. This could be, there are parts of this area that are tough. There are hardcore Republicans out there, but there are also plenty of folks that have taken down their Trump signs. That's a cry for help. So go out there, talk to them, and see if they're willing to go out and bring a different kind of politics to bear. With that, we could deliver the Senate seat, deliver a whole slate of Democrat victories in the state, take it in a different direction. I'm Alex Vindman. I'm running to be your U.S. Senator, to be your fighter in Congress. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate your vote. Looking forward to your questions. Okay. All right, thanks. This first question is, how will you protect Social Security? I think the first step on Social Security, there's another one over there. The first step on Social Security is closing some loopholes. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but they're at a certain income bracket, folks stop paying into Social Security. They're not subject to that percentage of their income going to Social Security. It's frankly a really, really low number, 170,000. But the point is that anybody that makes in excess of that amount is not paying into the system. And that, I think, to me, is a loophole that needs to be closed. If we do, actually, I think it's a matter of when, not if, but when we do this, because I think this idea is gaining momentum, when we do this, we can make sure that Social Security is solvent. A program that is overwhelmingly popular. It is frankly a promise that we make to working people that paid into it over the course of their lives, that Social Security will be there on the back end and provide the safety net, frankly the earned income that they put into it. And we could expand benefits. So that's really the trick here. And it gives me an opportunity to talk about another passion project, is fixing a tax system that's broken, where the costs of taxes are too high for working families that are just struggling to get by, and the billionaires are not paying their fair share. And I want a fair tax system. To be 100% clear, I'm fighting for fairness. I want a fair tax system where folks are paying in for the greater good of this country. And I think, step one is obviously reversing course on what we saw occur in this administration, which is what my opponent Ashley Moody voted for, $1 trillion in tax cuts for the billionaires. That's what she voted for. That's what's jeopardizing Medicaid. That's what created a crisis with regards to the Affordable Care Act subsidies. That's what reduced SNAP benefits. So reversing course on the tax cuts that we saw this administration pursue, but also making sure we right-size the tax system where the wealthy are paying their fair share. That's what I'm fighting for. Okay. Thanks. Devin on my team reads the questions to me ahead of time so I could process them. Thanks. MPAs. So I'll tell you a couple of interesting things. There is nothing easy about running for statewide here in the state of Florida. We haven't had a statewide win in quite some time. But what I'm seeing this time around are a couple of really key indicators that this is a really unique opportunity, a generational opportunity, frankly, in Florida, where regardless of the fact that the president is still popular, he's now underwater. He's now at 46% favorability, so he's underwater. He's still popular, but nobody is really looking for an automatic yes vote. They don't want a rubber stamp. They want somebody that's going to be judicious, thoughtful, call balls and strikes regardless of party. That's kind of the general environment that I'm seeing here. And it's playing out in a couple of different areas. It's playing out in the polling that we're seeing, which has this as a margin of error race. Any of the credible polling has this as a margin of error race. And interestingly enough, it's playing out in the grassroots support I mentioned. We've received 425,000 contributions to this campaign, averaging less than $40. Out of that sum, 20% of my support comes from outside of Democrats. It comes from NPAs and comes from Republicans. 7% of my in-state donors are registered Republicans, another 13% are NPAs. So there's something that's connecting in the way we're talking about folks. We're talking about issues. We're talking about ending the chaos. We're talking about crushing corruption. We're talking about cutting costs. The chaos of wars overseas, of tariff policies that are driving up costs for everything. We're talking about corruption that is in the pockets of special interests driving up costs. These are the things that seem to be connecting with MPAs. And the bulk of this is, there's no avoiding this. MPAs are probably just not paying that much attention. They're busy living their lives. I think Democrats and Republicans tend to be more plugged in. MPAs less so. They're not as ideologically driven, and which means that they're not as locked in. So the bulk of my efforts, especially as we get into the end game, this campaign is going to be figuring out how to connect with MPAs in the I-4 corridor, going out and connecting with communities that are not on the basis of politics, but on the basis of delivering a brighter future. That's going to be the struggle.
Florida's top statewide issue.
There's a couple of, I'm going to cheat and say there are two things that seem to connect on a regular basis with regard to statewide issues. Healthcare costs are an enormous burden. That seems to come across in lots of different engagements. We had about 2.2 million folks have their healthcare jeopardized or lose their healthcare as a result of the big ugly bill. Yeah, in Florida, just in Florida, and that's as a result of this big ugly bill that drained resources away from healthcare to give billionaires a tax cut. So that's one issue, and one of the things I've lived in other corners of the world. I've seen what other countries are able to provide with regards to their healthcare, it's frankly shocking that we're the wealthiest country in the world, and we don't have something even remotely resembling universal health care. We don't our access to health care is quite limited, and I think that's one of the things that I'm going to be laser focused on, is figuring out how to expand health care access. There's a couple of ideas that I'm exploring that could get us moving in the right direction with probably bipartisan support. The other issue that I think is consistent is, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands on this one, is homeowners insurance. Who is thinking that, who is struggling with homeowners insurance or is feeling the pain of homeowners insurance? Anybody that's not, that would be an exception. You'd be a rare, I'd have to find out what you were doing that's special. Because everywhere you go, homeowners insurance is an issue. If you go to a place like the Villages, where folks are living on fixed incomes, they're budgeted perfectly what they need to pay for, you know, their rents or pay for their mortgages. They can't tolerate our insurance rates in the state of Florida doubling or tripling, which is what we've been experiencing. So that's a factor there. And then for young folks that are renting, it's a huge issue, because on average, across the state of Florida, 37% of monthly income goes to pay towards rent. So homeowners insurance is a big issue too. And it's in the military, we're taught to not just, you know, frame a problem, but propose a solution. So I've got another one on this one too, just like healthcare. Part of the reason that homeowners insurance rates have increased is because we've had a flight of insurance companies. The flight of insurance companies means that there are less choices, and that the less choices means that they could go ahead and charge whatever they want. So what I'm thinking about is, frankly, a insurance trust fund that is there in case of catastrophic losses. So hurricanes, particularly, that's the issue that we face. They're there. The insurance companies pay the first dollar, but if there are catastrophic losses across, you know, thousands of homes, then we have a trust fund that backstops. What that does is it encourages those companies to stay in the state of Florida, to come back to the state of Florida, and then you have competition between these companies to drive down costs. So that's one of my solution sets for homeowners insurance. If we do that part, I think we could get homeowners insurance in a better position. So I think it would be modeled somewhat similar to the flood insurance program, but this would be obviously on a much bigger scale. I think that funding for this could come. There are some creative ways I'm thinking about it. The biggest solution would be to get a trust fund from the largest economies in the country. So we're a $1.7 trillion economy here in the state of Florida. I think that we could get the other large state economies to pitch in, because they're facing different challenges. This is a fund for catastrophic losses. And we would basically be able to pool those resources, because you're not going to, the probability of suffering a catastrophic event across everywhere is negligible. But in different corners of the country, it's increasingly probable with climate change. So you establish a trust fund by states that are facing these same challenges, paying into it, and then it gets applied for crises. Okay, this one's about abortion and women's rights. So I'm committed to reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. I've got a 15-year-old daughter. I've got a 15-year-old daughter. I think for me, it's galling that she has less rights than her mother had at the same age. I think it's also probably in part a decision for young women about where they choose to live their lives. And for me, trying to get my daughter to when she turns 18 and gets a chance to choose where she wants to live, I want that to not be an issue that's dwelling on our minds. There's already too many factors on young folks' minds. Affordability is a factor. Finding jobs in the state of Florida. I mean, there's a scarcity of jobs for folks in their 20s in the state of Florida. One thing that she shouldn't be worried about is rights and the control over her body. So that's one thing that I'm absolutely committed to, and it's personal for me. try to do the best we can here. Take a look at that one. Okay, getting big money out of politics. I think part of the reason that we are facing the challenges we are today is there was a Supreme Court decision, End Citizens United, that basically allowed for a flood of money, corporate dollars into politics, unlimited funding into super PACs and things of that nature. Frankly, I'm experiencing that today as a result of my making this race competitive. A billionaire in the state of Florida wrote a check for $2.5 million into Ashley Moody's super PAC for independent expenditure. These are folks that are trying to buy the elections. They're trying to make sure that they have the resources. They're trying to crush the will of the people, and each person, one vote. This basic philosophy that this country has existed under or tried to usher in hasn't always been like that, as we know. So getting a big money out of politics, this is an essential task as far as I'm concerned. It is highly improbable that we're going to make much headway in these next 2 years after we win the midterm elections. We're going to have lots of different fights we're going to have to fight with the current administration. We could expect, laws being passed by a Democratic-controlled House and Senate, and vetoes and all sorts of other challenges. But it is something that I've committed to. I earned the End Citizens United PAC endorsement based on my pledge to get money out of politics. Interestingly enough, that same day that I earned that endorsement, my opponent, Ashley Moody, made their top 2026 most corrupt politicians list. How about that for a contrast? Yeah. So I think this is just going to be legislation. Ultimately, it's going to have to be a law that we pass with overwhelming support, recognizing that plenty of folks on the other side, the Republicans, are funding their campaigns in this way. So this is something that we will have to fight tooth and nail to get done. But it could also be one of the most important things that we could do to revitalize our democracy. Okay. Question about taking care of veterans. So this is a personal issue to me. Also, 21 years in the military. I saw a lot of hands in here. There are a lot of veterans in this room, and I think one of the ways that I'm committed to making sure we take care of our veterans is making sure that we fund a fully functional and operational VA medical system. The VA is being attacked by this administration. They're cutting funds, they're cutting services. Some basic things, I'm not sure how many folks outside the military know this, but there is a suicide crisis in the military. It's a horrible fact that on a daily basis, there are service members that are committing suicide. And this administration made the decision to cut hotlines, suicide hotlines. This administration is making decisions to cut thousands and thousands of jobs for medical practitioners. So making sure that we fully fund the VA. That doesn't get us all the way there, but that is a kind of a sacred trust that we had with our veterans that I intend to make sure that we keep. I think that we in the military are pretty blessed and enjoy some pretty unique opportunities. My daughter's education, when push comes to shove, when she goes off to university, wherever she goes, she'll get it paid for because of the GI Bill. I was the beneficiary of VA loans in order to buy a home. I'm actually thinking about ways that we could expand those kinds of supports for the broader society. One of the things I'm thinking about is a voluntary national public service program where folks contribute to the community good, to the public good, and get access to ways to get to a home ownership. Right now, on average, in the state of Florida, over 40 years old in order to be able to buy a home. If you're in public service, if you volunteer for public service, that could be an entry point for home ownership. I think it could be also, I mentioned schools. It could be a way to help offset the cost of universities that are skyrocketing and through national public service. So that's just, I think, a better, broader view of what public service is. Uniform service is one form of service, but there are other kinds of public service that we also should elevate and encourage folks to join.
How can we ensure quality education for all, and they note that teachers are paid lower in Florida than a lot of other states?
Okay. Actually, on that question, the veterans question, I'm not sure if I feel like I fully satisfied that one. Who asked that question? I want to see if you had anything on your mind, if I'm not putting you too much on the spot. Was there somebody willing to maybe share something on veteran services? If not, come to me offline. This is, again, an area that I'm very, very much focused on, and I don't want to make sure I don't shortchange that issue. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good piece of legislation. I was able to work with a group called Vote Vets in my years after military service and help pass the PAC Act to make sure that we didn't leave folks behind that suffered, devastating health effects from deployments and absorbing chemical agents. So I'm very much on board with taking a look at expanding those kinds of programs and services. Thanks. Okay, quality education for all. This is a particularly challenging issue in the state of Florida. I want to say that we're 50th in teachers' pay, if I recall. Yeah, 50th in teachers' pay. We've drained $4.1 billion out of public schools in the state of Florida for voucher programs, which means we've defunded public schools. That is resulting in really terrible outcomes for young folks and creating a vicious cycle in which the schools are defunded, they drop in quality, we don't recruit the best teachers, and then the Republicans could say that, well, the schools aren't great, so we need to fund these voucher programs. So we need to figure out how to break the cycle of defunding our public schools. I think minimum requirement for me is if we're taking taxpayer dollars and putting them into voucher programs, there should be some guardrails. There should be some standards. If public schools are required to meet testing standards, to meet curriculum standards, it should be the same case for any school that receives public funds. That's your tax dollars. K through 12 education is where people normally go to when they talk about schools. I think I would want to expand that to early childhood education. It's absolutely crystal clear that the outcomes, thank you, the outcomes for Head Start programs for early childhood education create thriving students later on in life. I also think that we should be thinking more broadly about education, and universities are a solution for lots of people, but we should be investing in trade schools. And I think we should also be thinking about lifelong learning. And what I mean by that is we are on the edge of a huge displacement of the workforce through artificial intelligence. And if we're not paying attention to what is about to happen with folks being displaced, if we're not thinking about regulation, if we're not thinking about making sure that we offset the harm, we're talking about millions of people losing their jobs. And that is a national security risk. That is going to be inherently destabilizing. Part of the reason that our politics are so acute right now is because a lot of people are acting off of grievance. When jobs went overseas, industrial jobs went overseas, millions of people lost their jobs in the middle of this country and are acting off of grievance. We're about to see something bigger hit with regards to artificial revolution. And if we're not doing something to plan for that, then we are a huge disservice from electeds to not invest and start to think about lifelong learning and retraining the workforce and making sure that we provide jobs for folks. So it's early childhood education, it's high quality K through 12, it's making sure teachers get the pay that they deserve, and it's also lifelong learning and retooling the workforce as we constantly change, because the economy is changing pretty quickly. Thanks.
Okay, this is the last question, and I want you to read the whole question because it is
Okay. All right. I'm a longtime supporter since AV's testimony at impeachment, at the impeachment trial. Where do you suggest we direct our donations to get the most bang for the buck in our mission to flip Congress blue? Thank you for stepping up and running for Senate. Look, this is I really appreciate the support. If you go to alexvindman.com, what you'll find there is a couple of different things. You'll find my policy page, which lays out a whole Florida First agenda. It talks about what we're going to do with regards to homeowners insurance. It talks about what we're looking to do with regards to education. It talks about the affordability crisis. It talks about fighting corruption and what we need to do on that front, including getting money out of politics. It talks about ending the chaos that we're experiencing. The other thing that you'll find there is a volunteer page. If you go to the volunteer page, we're going to be needing every single hand on deck in order to pitch in for this election, and we could use that support. You know, as soon as you're ready, we'll have work for you to do, and it won't be just for us. Yes, we have a really daunting challenge winning statewide, but we have a lot of superb candidates running down ballot. There are some awesome candidates running for state for congressional seats, for state house and state senate. So we intend to use our resources for the common good and delivering some democratic power. And then the other thing that you'll see is a way to contribute to this campaign. And it is very much a grassroots-driven campaign. Our average contributions, like I said, are less than $40. But we're arming ourselves, and we've raised about $17 million, but we're arming ourselves for a fight in excess of $50 million, $55 million. So we are marching on the way there to be able to deliver this win, but we can't do it alone. So really appreciate you all coming out here. Do you want to catch me afterwards? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's right, because I'm laser focused on the general election. That's where the biggest changes could occur. We unseat Angie Nixon. We put another Democrat. We get control of the Senate. That's when we unseat Ashley Moody. That's when changes really occur. So that's what I'm focused on. And I'm happy to stick around for some photos and maybe take some more questions on our way out. I think you have some other business to take care of, so I won't hold you up. But I really appreciate you all coming out here. Thank you.